The cabin's light. Ethan loved hiking in the winter. The solitude of the snowy trails gave him a sense of peace he couldn't find anywhere else. On this trip, he was deep in the mountains, miles away from any town, and the snow was falling heavily as dusk settled in. As he trudged through the deepening snow, his map showed he was close to the cabin he'd rented for the weekend. But when he arrived, Ethan found nothing but an empty clearing. Frustrated and chilled to the bone, he considered turning back. That's when he saw it. A faint, warm glow through the trees. A cabin. Relieved, Ethan hurried toward the light. The cabin was small, with a sagging roof and frost-covered windows. It didn't look like the one he'd rented, but in the storm, he wasn't about to be picky. He knocked on the door, but there was no answer. "Hello?" he called, his voice muffled by the snow. The door creaked open at his touch. Inside, a fire crackled in the hearth, and a single lantern glowed on the table. There was no sign of anyone. Ethan hesitated. The cabin felt abandoned, but the warmth was irresistible. He closed the door behind him, grateful for the heat. Sitting near the fire, he noticed strange details. The furniture was old, the wood warped with age. The walls were covered in scratch marks, as though something had clawed at them. He shook off the unease. "It's just an old cabin," he muttered to himself. Hours later, Ethan woke with a start. The fire had burned low, and the room was colder. Something felt wrong. He listened intently, hearing only the wind outside. But as he stood to stoke the fire, he noticed something odd. The lantern on the table was no longer glowing. It had been moved. The scratch marks on the walls seemed deeper now, more jagged, as though freshly made. A loud thud echoed from upstairs. Ethan froze. He hadn't realized the cabin had a second floor. Gathering his courage, he grabbed a heavy piece of firewood and crept up the narrow staircase. The second floor was dark, the air thick and musty. "Hello?" he called again, his voice trembling. In the corner of the room stood a figure. At first, he thought it was a person, but as his eyes adjusted to the dark, he realized it wasn't human. It was tall, unnaturally so, its limbs too long, and its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The figure stepped forward, its movements jerky and wrong, and Ethan stumbled back, dropping the firewood. The lantern downstairs flickered to life. The creature stopped, its empty gaze fixed on Ethan. "You shouldn't have come here," it rasped, its voice like wind through broken glass. By morning, the cabin stood dark and cold, the fire long extinguished. Ethan's friends found the clearing, but there was no sign of him. Inside the cabin, the scratch marks on the walls were deeper than ever. The lantern still sat on the table, glowing faintly, though no one had lit it. Feeling the chills yet? Don't forget to like, comment, and follow for more spine-tingling stories. What would you do if you stumbled upon a cabin in the woods? Let me know below.